Hey everybody, hi, it's Mike, and welcome to the show. I got a great show today. Um, I got a great video, and it's kind of picking up where I left off yesterday. But first, I want to show the opening. Hey, thanks. Welcome back. Thanks for watching the opening with me. I just wanted to welcome everybody, and I do want to give a shout out to all the Scientology protesters out there. And I got a great show because I'm going to tell you all about the Rasa Lila, which is it's like the Xenu thing of Hare Krishna. And of course, I want to show you all my handy dandy little. There we go. You can see my visit us on the web at itsmikesandoval.com. So I had to put that up there because that costs a lot of money to make. It's not free. That stuff's not free. So and now I'm going to take it down. Boom, it's gone. And anyway, that's my intro for today. Okay. 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 Great. So I want to give a shout out to all the Scientology protesters out there. Man, Audit LA is getting to the bottom of everything. She's like, there really should be like an army. Like she needs she needs an army of helpers to really get to the bottom of all this. I mean, she can't be everywhere all the time by herself. And of course, I'm tens of thousands of miles away, so I can't help out. I can't do it. But I was trying to. In the beginning, I was trying to contact some of the fake organizations that were applying for these permits, and I wasn't getting any response from any of them. And I let Audit know. I sent her a message, and I was like, hey, these organizations are fake because they're not contacting me. I'm trying to email them. I'm trying to message them. And if it's the Chicano Democratic Latino or whatever, why aren't they getting back to me? Why did they block me? Why did they block me? So same thing with the Bangladeshi organization. I just get no response. So um, that's what I was trying to help in that way. Whatever I can do, long distance from a long distance. Um, but let me just say, she's doing great work going to City Hall. I think the next step is to find out why the LAPD is participating in these swatting things. I mean, I understand they have to investigate, they have to respond to a call because they don't know. But once they know, why do they act like they don't know? Like once they show up and they see what's going on, they should immediately just go, all right, this is one of those fake swatting calls. They do their, observation. They check it out. They check the guy out. They go, okay, there's no need. It's their LAPD is actively participating in these swatting calls on Scientology's behalf. I mean, they're not going to admit it, but that's what's going on. It's clearly that's what's going on. So that needs to be investigated as well. So and I also need to take some coffee. So, and then of course, Streets LA with this weirdo. All these weirdos, these Scientology weirdos, they really come out of the woodwork. And I mean, if you've been in a cult, if you've been around, if you've been in a cult, like I've never been in Scientology, but man, I feel like I can spot these guys. Like I don't know. I feel like I got like some kind of a cult radar where, like the Joey Rocket dude. I mean, normal people don't act the way these guys are acting, the Tony guy. Your average person who has nothing to do with a cult, absolutely nothing to do with a cult, doesn't act, they don't do these things. They don't act this way. They just don't. So anytime I see anyone at La Poubelle, at Big Blue, at, at any of these places, it's like I'm like, well, that's just, some of these security guards. Well, we know that they dress up as security guards, but some of these ones that are acting like, oh, I'm just a no. I'm a rent-a-cop. I have nothing to do with Scientology. I don't even know where I am. I'm from La Habra, and this is just my, no. I don't believe that. I don't believe anything that anybody says on that street or around any other. I don't. Like, I don't, just like I don't trust Hare Krishna. I don't trust any, okay. I'm getting all excited again. But anyway, these guys, these Scientologists, man, I'm telling you, they're going to keep it up with the swatting as long as LAPD participates with them. I mean, once LAPD, it's a crime to do that. So LAPD should really be looking at who's doing where's the crime? The crime is the call. That's what they need to be investigating, not Solomon or Jessica or Jessica or Streets or Dio. Any of these people, they need to be investigating who's making these calls, because it's obviously the same person or organization or something. I mean, I'm no Columbo, but I can figure this out. I mean, we can all figure it out. Why can't the LAPD figure it out? Why can't the district attorney figure it out? Why the city attorney? Why can't the city attorney? Why can't the city figure it out? We all got it figured out. I mean, is there anybody that doesn't know who's calling, who's doing the swatting calls? Anybody? Is anybody out there confused as to what's going on? I need some more coffee. So anyway, I got some great video. Like this guy, let me just show you. Like one of my other videos I was saying, I think it was just the last one I did, streams, lives I did. I was explaining how these Hare Krishnas, same as the Scientologists do the same thing. They all do the same thing. The Hare Krishnas, and because I know these guys, some of them I know personally. I'm not friends, but I know them from being at the LA Temple. LA Temple is one of the biggest Krishna communities in North America. It's got probably the most Hare Krishnas there, full time living there, than any other temple anywhere. Maybe Florida, Alachua, Florida, and I think Clearwater. They have something there. In Dallas, there's a center in Dallas, and there's Hare Krishnas around, but I can't think of one that's bigger than the LA temple. So I would see a lot of these guys come through. I mean, LA is it's like Hollywood, right? These guys, they gotta come through and make their grand entrance. Woo! Look at me, I'm a guru. They got to come through, but some of them, they just hang out in India. They don't even want to come to the U.S. But I was explaining in another video about how these guys pretend to be, when it's convenient for them to spread their BS, they pretend like they're not Hare Krishnas. They pretend like they're Dr. So-and-so from the University of Ding Dong. And then they they put on their suit and their tie, and they act like they're some professor of history. Meanwhile, they're not. They're really, well, they do have a degree in something. I don't know what. But that was the plan. That was the plan from the early days. Was the founder, this Prabhu Fraud guy, wanted his disciples to go to college and get degrees so they could be authorities, and then people would listen to them while they talk all this BS. And that's what they did. Some of them did. The ones who had money or had a family or had the means to go to school and get a degree, but not all of them did, because he didn't want everybody going to college. He only wanted he wanted some of them to go. And of course, some people that are in college, they join. So they're already in college. So, depending on how much but they can all take a different path. Like, I was into video and working at the TV station when I met the Hare Krishna. So I did that for Hare Krishna. I started a public access television program. I was doing video editing for the Hare Krishnas, for the video department company. So that's kind of how it works with Hare Krishna. If you're a mechanic and you join the Hare Krishnas, then you're fixing cars for the temple. If you're a carpenter and you join the temple, the Hare Krishnas, now you're building wood stuff for the temple, for the altar, for the whatever, the gate, whatever it is they need. That's what you're doing. And if you're not anything and you're just you just join, you got no skills at all to do anything, they'll find something for you to do, and you start doing that. But some of these guys that joined were already in college. Some of them already had a degree, and then they just joined the Hare Krishnas. But there was definitely a plan to get Hare Krishnas with degrees, college degrees, so that they could be accepted into conferences, religious conferences, and different, even politics. He want like Tulsi Gabbard. She's a perfect example of a Hare Krishna that goes into politics so that they can spread their crap, in the political arena, and not just in going from temple to temple. Like, he wanted that stuff. Same way the Scientologists, they do the safe pointing and they do all that. Let me get in with this guy and that guy in the city, and we get to speak close. Hare Krishna the same way, but they hide it. They don't say, hey, I'm from the temple and I want to speak at your thing. They go, I'm Dr. whoever, and they don't say that they're a Hare Krishna, and then they get invited to speak at some religious conference, and then but the Vedic teachings of the Vedas and in Hindu and India, and it goes back 5,000 years, and then they start talking their BS. And so that's what they do. These guys do it, and I'm going to show you how they get away with it. I don't know, but I'm going to show you on a Wikipedia page here. Let me see how I'm still new at this, so let me figure this out. Okay, so this Wikipedia page here, talking about the subject that I'm going to talk about. We go down here and we find a quote by this guy here, this Graham Schwig. Graham Schwig observes that a clear reading of the story leads one to see the story as a symbol of intense devotion to God and not a display of worldly lust. Well, who is he to say that? Okay. It sounds like Graham Schwig. I don't know who he is, but he says that. And then he goes on and he quotes the Bhagavad Purana, whatever, and then he says, he makes another quote. And then he argues here. Schwig argues for the appreciation of the unique vision presented in the text, in which God is an adorable, eternally youthful cowherd boy who plays the flute and delights in amorous, remember that word, amorous dalliance, in amorous dalliance with his dearest devotees. Schwig compares the Rasa Lila to the Song of Songs. Okay, so before we get into the topic of what I want to talk about, I just want to touch on this guy, because this guy, we're going to see this guy. But if we go down here even more and we look at the references that this Wikipedia entry has. So we have references, and the references come up, and it states Schweig, whatever, however you say his name. And I don't mean to mangle his name. I just don't know how it's pronounced. It seems like it's a German name, Schweig. I'm not sure. And then it says, so he wrote a book, 2005, Dance of Love, the Rasa Lila of Krishna from the Bhagavat Purana, India's classic. I know who he is. I'm just explaining who this guy is, because I'm just showing how he does this. Okay, so this Shui guy, he wrote this book, and then he's a New York University, Princeton University Press. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So my allergies. So he's in here and as a reference in this Wikipedia page, but nowhere does it say he's a Hare Krishna guru. It doesn't say he has any connection with Hare Krishna or Prabhupada or ISKCON. It doesn't mention that he's a guru. If he is a guru, he has his own disciples. You're saying a skeptic perspective is saying that he has his own disciples. I don't know, but I take your word for it. I don't think you're here to lie. But if he's got his own disciples, that just shows he's even more of a cheater, he's even more bogus. But this is how they do this. Okay, this is how the Hare Krishnas do this. And here it is again. They have bibliography. It says so. It's telling us who this guy is. Schweig, Princeton University Press, Princeton, New Jersey, 2005. But nowhere does it say that he's a Hare Krishna and that and that's his point of view about whatever he's talking about. So let me get back over here. I want to get back over here. So that that's a whole other issue, because he's not the only one doing that. Okay, there's Druta Karma, which I know him. Don't know him, but I've seen him many times at the LA Temple. Druta Karma and Sadaputa, or whatever his name is. A lot of these guys. Jayadwaita thinks he's some kind of author or literary genius or something. All these guys, they and they'll go by their government name, if you want to call it that, their birth name, when it suits them, and then they go by their Hare Krishna name when they want to be a guru. So, I mean, I'm not, my issue is, like, if you're trying to be a guru, you're trying to, I think, what is it? Satyam is truthfulness or something, right? You're preaching truthfulness. You're preaching to be a truthful person. Truthfulness is a saintly quality, right? And even if it's not a Hare Krishna quality, even just in the normal world, right? Honesty and truthfulness is a character trait that kind of shows a good person. It shows you that you're a good person, right? Like, there's not a lot we have to judge people on in the real world, right? Just and Satya, yeah. So truthfulness. So he's sitting up there trying to preach truthfulness, honesty, truthfulness as a quality, as a quality of what real people. Hare Krishna always talking about how we're like we're the real civilized people, because we don't eat meat and we don't do this, and we are Satya. We're truthful, honest, whatever. And it's nothing but a bunch of dishonesty. I mean, it is so dishonest. I mean, this right here is this guy. It's like, how come he doesn't put in the bibliography that he's a Hare Krishna, that he's Garuda Das Adhikari, or Garuda Das, whatever he calls himself. I don't even know, but he's Garuda. Okay, he's Garuda, but he doesn't have the qualities of Garuda. He doesn't have Satyam. He's not Satyam. He doesn't have truthfulness because he can't even put in his Wikipedia entry, which he probably had one of his disciples add. He probably had one of his disciples put that entry in there that this Schweg guy says that it's this, this, and this. Otherwise, how did it get in there? How did that entry get in there? And then they quote him as if he's just some author from Princeton or whatever university that he's from. It's totally dishonest. It is completely dishonest, this guy. But he's going to sit there and preach four regulative principles, chant Maha Mantra, chant the magic words. Information will enter your head directly. So, well, it didn't enter his head because he's still trying to fool people. And that's the thing, is they can sit there and preach truthfulness. Meanwhile, they believe that they can do anything to get someone in. That they can lie, they can cheat, they can tell you any story they want if it'll make you take a book. I remember talking to this devotee at the LA temple named Govinda Das or whatever his name, and I remember asking him questions about I was just getting into it. It was like I'd been reading the books and I was chanting, but I had not been to the temple that much. So I'd already read Bhagavad Gita, and I was already chanting. I had beads, I was chanting, and I was now starting to go to the temple more and more. I was listening to the lectures. I was talking to different devotees. I was meeting these devotees. So I meet this devotee that was he ran the book table in front of the temple, in front of the temple in LA. And he's a really nice guy, but just he lied to me about everything. I mean, he lied to me. I asked him about his kid. He had his kid there. I asked him if his kid was in the Hare Krishna school. He was like, yeah, my kid goes to the school. And I was asking him all these other questions. That turned out that he was totally lying to me. But he was telling me what I needed to hear to make me want to keep going to the temple. Like, he wasn't going to tell me, yeah, I don't put my kid in the school because I don't trust these guys with my kid. He didn't tell me that. He's like, yeah, my kid goes to the school. His kid wasn't in the school. He was telling me, I was asking him about some other things, the gurus or something. I was like, I heard about these gurus. Oh, well, he made up some lie about that. And I didn't really know until later, like years later, I realized that this guy was lying to me. First I found out he was lying to me about his kid because his kid wasn't in the school. And then I found out he was lying to me about some gurus because what he was telling me wasn't true. It just wasn't true. And I was like, and then I'm reading, where these guys are saying, well, Prabhupada said, a white lie to get people to, by hook or by crook, sell them a book, and all of these different little things, And then I'm reading the letters where Prabhupada is saying, he's writing letters to Sat Swarup and writing letters to different people, and he's telling them, what I'm telling you, this is not for the public to know. What I'm saying about black people is not for the public to know. What I'm saying about women is not for the public to know. And I'm reading this, so that this dishonesty is coming directly from Prabhupada, by hook or by crook, directly from Prabhupada. Tell them whatever you need to tell them, Smack your wife around if you need to get your wife in line, you can smack her around. If you need to smack your kids around and get them in line, you can beat them. Not even your kid. Prabhupada told Yashodanandan that he could beat and what got me at that point was I'm reading this letter. It's not a letter. I'm reading the conversation between Yashoda, who I'm working with, who's like the head of the organization I'm working with. It's a conversation with Prabhupada and Yashodanandan and Guru Kripa. And they're sitting there with Prabhupada. And Yashodanandan asks Prabhupada, I got this, and I know who he's talking about. He's talking about Raghunath. He's saying, I got this kid, he keeps running away, he's a pain in the ass. I don't know what to do with him. And Prabhupada's, yes, yeah, kids can be a problem, whatever. And Yashoda says, well, can we beat the kids if you can? And he says it. That's the word used. Can we beat the kids? Because evidently spanking wasn't working, right? Spanking wasn't working because the kids were getting too big. The kids were growing up. They're not 10, 11 now. They're 14, 15. And spanking them's not working. So Yashoda's like, can we beat them? And I was like, wow, And Prabhupada's like I don't think Prabhupada understood the question because he's like, he answers something else. Like Prabhupada heard a different question, and so he answers a different question. So then Yashoda repeats the question. He says, no, but can we beat the kids? And then Prabhupada says, yes, you can beat them. So, I mean, Prabhupada just green light for abusing these children. I mean, and then Yashoda wants to sit there and say, well, I never beat any kids. That's what Yashoda told me. Like, well, I never beat any kids because there were rumors around that he did beat some kids, and there's a conversation where he's asking if he could beat some kids, and there are some kids that are saying, yeah, Yashodananda was one of the guys that was abusing us in the Gurukula. So I didn't even ask Yashoda anything. He said to me one time, because Raghunath lived in the community. He was in L.A. He lived in L.A. at the time. And so Raghunath, I guess, was telling his story to devotees about how Yashoda either abused him or didn't abuse him. I don't know. I you know what? It's just like so many stories. But there was definitely some kind of conflict, something going on between Yashoda and Raghunath. Whether or not Yashoda was beating the kids in the Gurukula. And I don't know all the details of it. But Yashodananda volunteered to me one day, because we were like good friends. Yashodananda and I were like, yeah, I'd go to his house. I was renting his apartment. I was doing like computer work for him. His computer would break down. I'd go and I'd get it going again. And I was doing video stuff. I was with Yashodananda. So when he came to me and he goes, I never beat any kids. And I was just thinking, well, geez, you're like this big, huge guy, and to a 4 or 5 year old, 6 year old kid, you're like a gigantic monster to them, with your stick, in your robe and your stick. Like you probably didn't have to do too much to them, like to freak them out, like to where they were like scared of, it's like having Guy Lafleur or some big hockey player come into the room. What are you kids doing? I don't even want to think about what, because I get worked up over what these little kids went through at the hands of these monsters. These friggin' monsters. And Yashodananda wasn't a school teacher. He wasn't a school teacher. What is he doing in the Gurukula? Babysitting these kids, teaching. He's no teacher. He's no school teacher. What is he doing? And Guru Kripa and all of these guys. What are they doing around kids? They're not school teachers. What are they doing around kids? I don't get it. So I wanted to talk about Rasa Lila, okay, because it's like, it's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing. It's Rasa Lila, for anybody out there who's watching replay, whatever. Rasa Lila is basically the dance of sex or the dance. I mean, they don't want to. They don't want to say sex, right? They want Hare Krishnas want to say rasa is not sex, right? But I got to tell you, man, I got to tell you, I've been to India. I got a friend in India, and Rasa Lila means sex. Like, if they want to, if like Rasa Lila means sex. That's what it means. And when they say, like, when they want to say sex to somebody, they go Rasa Lila. Rasa Lila. That's what they say. So this whole idea that Rasa Lila is not sex is strictly a Hare Krishna thing, because I don't know where it's coming from, but it's and what really got me was one day I was I was reading something to my roommate who's not a Hare Krishna, and I was reading about Lord Shiva and how Lord Shiva got agitated by Mohini, and he was chasing her, and he ejaculated. And I don't know why. I don't know what it was about what Prabhupada was saying in the purport or something, but for some reason I wanted my friend to hear it, because it was, and I never preached to the guy. I wasn't really even preaching. I was just like, hey, check this out, man. This is really interesting what Prabhupada's saying. And so, but I had to read the whole, I had to read the whole thing for it to make sense. And so when I read it to him, he just, after I read it, he just looked at me and he was just like, is that pornography? and I was like, no. And he goes, sure sounds like pornography to me. And I was like, no, it's not pornography. It's this is ancient scriptures from the Vedas. I was repeating the crap that they, 5,000-year-old Vedic. And he goes, yeah, it sounds like ancient. It sounds like ancient pornography. And then he wasn't even listening. He didn't even care about what I wanted him to hear. All he heard was the Lord Shiva getting erect and whatever. And he was like, and it made me think, like, for a second. I was like, he's right. Like, it really, I had to hear it from him. And I was like, he's right. He's absolutely right. As pornography. So I went back and I read it again, and I said, wow, this is like weird stuff. I started to look at it a little differently. And then it wasn't until I really started to break away from the Hare Krishnas, when I really started to look at everything. Like, I could look at things as a Hare Krishna and as an outsider, because I was starting to leave. I hadn't really left yet, but I was starting to leave. So there was like two sides now. There was the Hare Krishna side, and there was the not Hare Krishna side. So I was like, because I had to do that when they were trying to convince me that the child molester wasn't a child molester, and that all of these things were not, it was because I wasn't understanding. I wasn't all this. It made me look at things differently, because I was like, well, obviously you guys are wrong. It's like, I'm not going that way. It's, you guys are wrong. And so it just made me start looking at everything. Like, how are you guys wrong about other stuff too? And once I started doing that, it was like everything is wrong. Everything is wrong. And everything just popped out like one of those pictures that you look at and you stare at it and you don't see anything. It's just a bunch of colors. And you stare at it, and you stare at it, all of a sudden, bing, the picture pops out, and it's like right in your face. And that's exactly what happened. I was just like, I couldn't look at anything or read anything without just seeing this three-dimensional picture just pop right out. and it was all racism and sex and just I you know, and it's all got to come from somewhere, right? Like it's got to come from somewhere. So where is it coming from? Where is it where is this coming from? So you got to remember, like, okay, so it is pornography, right? It is pornography. So back then, right, 1,000 years ago, because this stuff's only like 1,000 years old. It's not 5,000 years old. Cavemen weren't even drawing on caves, you know, 5,000. I don't know, 5,000 years ago. They were drawing pictures 10,000 years, whatever. But there was no there 1,000 years ago in India or Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, whatever we call it, whatever it's called now, but wherever this stuff came from, these stories came from. Back then, like, not everybody could read and write. Not everybody could read and write. And so, and not everybody got to hear and read these stories. Just like not everybody got to participate in the rituals and the sacrifices. Not everybody got to throw rice in the fire. Not everybody got to do that. Not everybody got to chant the secret mantras. That stuff was in books that they brought out on a special occasion. They opened it up, and one guy who knew how to read it got to read it. That was in every religion. It was in everyone. In the Torah, the Quran, the Bible, all that stuff. It was written in languages that not everybody knew how to read Aramaic. Not everybody knew how to read Greek, whatever. You know, those books were, they didn't have a bunch of them. It wasn't like they had a million copies of these books back then. They were lucky. They were lucky to have a copy. Otherwise, everybody went to the one place where the one book was. So and the guys that got to read it, the priests, or the Brahmins, or whatever you call them, right? The pujaris, or whatever you want to call them. They're the ones that got to read these stories about Shiva. They're the ones that got to read these stories about the Rasa Dance. I mean, so they're reading these stories about Shiva, because Shiva did some stuff, right? It's Shiva and Parvati, and they're reading all these stories, right? And there's like, you know, what do you call it? It was like that old porno on cable where you didn't really see anything. It was like softcore porn, right? Like where it's porn, but you don't really see anything, right? It's like, you know, it's like non-alcoholic beer or something, right? It's like porn without the porn. It's kind of, so that's what this stuff is, right? It's like you know, porn without you know, it's like softcore porn. Then you get to the Rasa Dance, which is the highest. That's the Rasa Dance. Because let's break it down. Let's break it down, because the gopis, because, you know, Prabhupada explains who the gopis are many times, and we tend to think of the gopis as like these married women who had husbands and they're boiling milk and they're breastfeeding. These gopis are not grown women. Okay, so let's just make that clear. So when you see these pictures, these paintings, and these statues and these whatever, and, you know, from you know, historic, from hundreds and hundreds of years ago, these paintings and tapestries that depict this Rasa Dance, and it has these Krishna and the gopis, and the gopis they look like grown women, right? He's dancing with these grown women. They're not grown women. They're 11 to 13-year-old girls. That is what Prabhupada is saying. Now, I'm talking about this cult. I'm talking about Prabhupada's cult. I'm not talking about what my friend in India, what he believes, what he believes. He's a Hindu. I don't even know if he worships Krishna, because he worships Shiva, and his wife worships Chandra Devi. So he's worshiping Lord Shiva, and his wife is worshiping Chandra Devi, the moon, and but he lives in Vrindavan, so but he's not a Hare Krishna, so I don't know what he is doing. I don't know where he puts Krishna and Radha, as far as whether Shiva is the ultimate or Vishnu is the ultimate or Krishna. I have no idea. I don't talk to him like that. I don't care what. I don't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. It's but the cult, what this cult believes, is what we're getting at. I just want to make that clear. I want to make that clear to anybody out there who's watching who doesn't know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about what Hindus believe, what Indians believe, what Hindus believe. I'm talking about what this cult believes. Okay, I'm talking about what this cult, what Prabhupada, what this cult founder preaching to his disciples and his followers, what he is teaching them. He is teaching them that these gopis are not grown women. You see them in the paintings from hundreds of years ago. They're grown women. Now, I don't know, because I can't read the Sanskrit or the whatever language it's written in, or even if it says how old they are. I don't even know how old they are, but in the paintings from hundreds and hundreds of years ago, in the statues and the sculptures and the depictions of these gopis, they're grown women. But in the Hare Krishna religion, Prabhupada makes it abundantly clear that these gopis are 11 to 13 years old. They're 11 to 13 years old. Even though they're married, okay, because they married them early, right? Not that it's okay. And I don't even know that they married them at 11, 13. I mean, I guess they did. I mean, they did, because Prabhupada said my wife was 11 when I was 22. So Prabhupada is, I don't know. But Prabhupada is making it definitely clear in his books that these gopis that Krishna is dancing with on the banks of the river on the full moon night in the Rasa Lila are 11 to 13 years old. And Krishna is 16 years old, because Prabhupada says Krishna never ages past the age of 16. So he has his baby Lila when he's baby, and then he has his boyhood Lila when he's cowherd boy, and then he has his Rasa Lila with the gopis, and then he has his Lila in Dwarka when he goes to be a prince in Dwarka and he leaves Vrindavan. And but he never gets older than 16. He's always 6. He does all that in one day, I guess, because there is no time. Like, when he wants to be a baby, he's a baby, and when he wants to be a cowherd boy, he's a cowherd boy. And when he wants to dance, he dances, and when he wants the moon to be full, the moon is full. There is no. He doesn't wait for the full moon. The full moon waits for Krishna. So the gopis are 11 to 13 years old. Prabhupada makes this clear. And the gopis are 11 to 13. Krishna is 16. And Rasa Lila means sex. Because if you look at some of these old statues and the old things, you will see what's going on with these paintings. You will sometimes see these carvings. There's a place in India. There's a lot of places in India. They want you to think there's only one, but there's a lot of places in India where you can go, and there are pornographic sexual acts carved into the side of the temple, or as part, and because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about Rasa Lila. We're talking about the sex act. We're talking about that's what it's always been. It's always been Rasa Lila. Where I am, okay, this is where I am. Okay, there's an adult entertainment area, big adult entertainment area with a lot of nightclubs and a lot of go-go clubs and a lot of nudie bars and girly bars, and there's an Indian section where the Indian nightclubs are, and one of the biggest Indian go-go nightclub girly bars. What do you think the name of that nightclub is? I'll give you one guess. You can have one guess what they name that nightclub, because that's what it is. That's what it is. Rasa Lila is sex. When I was in India, and my friend was talking to one of his friends about, because I had gotten married. Okay, so I had been to India a bunch of times, but I was just a single guy. I was just like a brahmachari. I was just shaved up, but I was wearing white because I had a daughter, and I was a single parent, so I was wearing white. Year after year, I like a bunch of trips, and people would see me, and I'd be hanging out with my friend, and then his friends would see me, and then one year I go, and I got a wife with me, and so one of my friend's friends says to him, "Why did he get married when he's a Hare Krishna? Why did he get married?" And my friend says, "Rasa Lila, Rasa Lila." And I was like, "Oh," that was I was like, "Oh, he means sex. He's saying I want to have." He's not saying I want to go dance with gopis by the river. He's saying Rasa Lila, sex life. That's what it means, sex life. He's saying he got married because he wants to have sex. That's why. Why else? Because my friend's not a Hare Krishna. He's just an Indian guy. He's just a Hindu guy. He's like my age. So he's telling his friend he wants to have sex. He just wants Rasa Lila. That's all, Rasa Lila. And then on another time when I'm with my friend, and we were in Rishikesh, and we're just going out having fun, whatever. And we were going to this temple. So we were going to this temple, and so we not hitched a ride, but with some strangers that were going to the temple. So we all pitched in to get a cab, like a truck. It's like a truck, like a big Jeep. So we all pitched in so it would be cheaper, and we were all going up. So we're with these strangers. We don't even know who these people. We don't even know who these people are, and it's like four girls and a guy. It's like four girls and a guy and me and my friend in this big ass Jeep thing, and we go up to this temple, way on this hill, at the top of this mountain, and on the way back we stop at this waterfall with a swimming hole, and we all go in, and we all knew it was there, so we all had our bathing suits with us, so we could go get wet, get in the water. It was hot, so we all stop, and we all get in the water. We're all in the water, so it's like these four girls and this guy and me and my friend. And now my friend, he's like an Indian guy. He's an older Indian guy. He's married. He's got kids. He doesn't. He's like an old school Indian guy. He's not like a Western guy. Like, oh hey, we're like a day at the beach. He's like a he's like a respectful, you know, guy. But he's also like a like me. He's just like a regular guy. I'm the Hare Krishna. He's a regular guy. I'm the Hare Krishna, which was really kind of weird. But we're in this water hole. We're swimming. It's like a big enough for everybody to be in there, and we're not all too close to each other. But he starts playing with the girls. Like he recognized that like they're younger girls. They're like in their 20s, 30s. They're like in their 30s, and we're like in our 40s, 50s. So he starts splashing water at them and playing, and he's like, Rasa Lila, Rasa Lila, and he's laughing and he's playing. And I recognize the idea that, like, he's doing something that he's like, when's he ever going to get to do this again? Like, he might as well be in Vegas in a casino with showgirls, because that's like, to him, that's what it was. It was like, he's in a pool with these young girls, in a swimming hole with these young girls, and they're like in their bathing suits or whatever, and he's splashing water at them, and that's, to him, that's Rasa Lila, because he's like, you know, he's having the day of his life, the day of his life, I guess, for him. But for us in the West, that's nothing. That's a day at the beach. That's no big deal. But what he was yelling out was Rasa Lila, Rasa Lila. He was like, and he was laughing like, Rasa Lila, like, I'm having sex. Like, that was the joke, like, I don't know if you understand the joke, but that was the joke. He's like, I'm having sex. I'm because that's what Krishna did in the water with the gopis. He's splashing them with water. So Rasa Lila is Krishna having sex with 11-year-old girls on the banks of the rivers, but it's an orgy, is what it is. It's a bunch of girls, right? It's all these girls, and it's him, and then the mystical, magical thing of it is that he expands himself into all these Krishnas, so that all the gopis think that it's just them alone with Krishna. But that's only what the gopis think. That's not what's really happening. He's covering them with, what is it? Mahamaya? Is it Mahamaya? Not Yogamaya. Yogamaya is material. So he covers them with Mahamaya, and they think that he's dancing with an individual Krishna. Like, each gopi has their own, but that's Mahamaya. That's the illusion. He's covering them. Remember, this is like a deep dive. We're doing like a deep dive into what Prabhupada is really saying. So he covers the gopis with Mahamaya. They can't see what's really happening. What's really happening is that they're all having sex with Krishna in a big orgy. But Mahamaya is covering their eyes, and they think that they're alone with Krishna. Otherwise, why would they think that they're alone? Why would they need to think that they're alone with Krishna? And they're doing a one-on-one with Krishna. Why do they need to think that? And why is that an illusion? Why is that an illusion? Why doesn't Prabhupada say Krishna expands into all these guys so that he can have? No, he says Krishna covers them with Mahamaya so that they think that they're each one is dancing with one. And it's not a dance. Okay. So that's the high. So Lord Chaitanya says that this is the highest form of devotion. Is to be the highest form of devotion is to be an 11-year-old girl who just drops everything, her husband, her baby, whatever, and runs to Krishna to join this orgy by the banks in the middle of the night when they hear his flute. The same flute that went into the ear, the same flute, that sound that went into the ear of the four-headed guy who's growing on the flower that's growing on the forearmed guy who's laying on his brother who's a snake on the ocean of milk. So this is exactly, you hit the nail on the head. The goal, the highest form of life, the highest form of spiritual realization is to realize that you're just an 11-year-old girl on the banks of the river getting banged by Krishna whenever he feels like it in this big orgy. And now think about it. All these gurus, like all these big gurus, are like, what gopi am I? Am I Rupa Manjari gopi? Am I Lalita Shakti gopi? Am I? I don't even know that. Can't even think of all the names of the gopis, right? But what gopi am I? That's what they want to know. I'm a big time guru, and my spiritual realization is finding out what gopi I am. I want to know what little girl I am. I want to know what little girl I am. That's called, what is that called? Rasa Bhava, or Rasika, whatever they call it, right? So, right. Well, that's my second point is they don't lead with this at the Sunday feast, right? This is like the Xenu. This is like, and this guy told me, this devotee, Radhakunda Das, he was a really nice guy, but he was like all the other ones, man. He was just a big scammer, cheater, faker. But he told me one time we were in Vrindavan, and he is telling me that he's like, oh, Sri Mukunda, when you enter Vrindavan, right? He's telling me, like, when you enter Vrindavan, like Krishna's there, like Radharani and the gopi. He was telling me how it happens, right? When you enter Vrindavan, when you leave your body and you go back to the spiritual world and you enter Vrindavan, like there's a whole thing that happens, right? There's like, you don't just like bing and you're there, right? Like you just like bing and now you're in the spiritual world and you're like a gopi or you're a flower, but you don't just bing. It's like Star Trek, Scotty, coordinates, spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan, and then you just like form up on Goloka, like here I am, I'm here. No, so when you go, like the soul, I don't know, I don't know how you get you're in your spiritual body. The soul is in a spiritual body, and when you enter Vrindavan, it's like there's like a procession, like some kind of big communist, like a big communist march or something, and you go down and you meet everybody, like everyone's there, and they welcome you, and it's like horns are blowing, and all this whole thing is happening, and you actually, so this is the real Zeno part, and I don't know, skeptic perspective, if you know this part. Well, yeah, okay. So what happens? So check this out. So I'm gonna reveal some really heavy duty stuff right now, and and then we'll get to the video, because you got to understand why they don't want to talk about it. So Radhakunda says to me, he goes, Sri Mukunda, when you enter the spiritual world, you go down this thing, and there's like, all this pomp and whatever, and they meet you, they welcome you, you're welcomed in to Vrindavan, they welcome you in, Radharani and I guess Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva, I guess, I don't know, and Balaram, I guess they're all there, the cows, the cow boys. But he said that when you meet Krishna, that you get to kiss Krishna, and then the betel nut that's in his mouth that he's chewing on, because Krishna is like always chewing on the betel nut. So the betel nut is in his mouth, and when you kiss when you kiss you get to kiss Krishna, and when you kiss Krishna, uh, he spits the betel nut into your mouth, so you get to exchange. You get a like you French kiss Krishna, and some of that betel nut juice and betel nut goes into your mouth. You like exchange, and he said that the bliss that you get from that is like just it blows your mind. And I'm like, you telling me this is blowing my mind. But okay, so he told me this, right? And it's blowing my mind, because I was fully in. I wasn't. This is way before I ever even thought of leaving Hare Krishna. This is like, I'll tell you exactly when this was. This was in. This is like 2005. This is like 2005. So he in Vrindavan, and so he's telling me this, and I'm blown away by him telling me this. I'm just like, it's like hearing about Xenu almost, and I was in shock. I was in shock. I just never pictured anything like in that way. I mean, it was just totally blew my mind. Um, the fact that you would kiss Krishna, and then the fact that you get this betel nut from his mouth into your mouth was kind of gross. I mean, it is God. I mean, it is Krishna. So, but it was kind of gross. And then of course, it's like, oh, you got to think of it spiritually, whatever. It did kind of gross me out. But it did make me think, like, this is the goal of it all. And like that, at that moment, also, it kind of hit me that this is what these guys are are thinking. This is what they're like. It all kind of just gelled into this. We're gopis. We're gopis, and that's like it. Because Prabhupada says in his books that to be a cowherd boy is a certain Ross. It's that friendship. The mother is that parental Ross, right? I forget the name, so I'm not even going to try. But you have the mother and father, the parental love, the love of a parent for a child, the love of the friends, the boyhood, the cowherd boys friends. There's that relationship. You can have all these different relationships, the cows, whatever it is, but the highest relationship, what Lord Chaitanya says is the highest of all, although just the ultimate, the highest level of OT, whatever it is the gopis. It's the gopis. That's the highest. And Prabhupada says in his books, wanting to be a cowherd boy is that's not what we want to do. We don't want to be a cowherd boy. We don't want to be Krishna's mom. We don't want to be that. He teaches this because you can be all these things. And other, what they call sampradayas, other sampradayas teach, what you can, what relationship is best. Whether you want to become Sudama, Krishna's best friend, or you want to become Krishna's flute, or you want to become Krishna's hat, or whatever. Actually, those things are all Balaram, so you can't really become Krishna's hat, because that's Balaram. But you can become all these other things. You can become, but we should strive to be a gopi. When we hear Krishna, we just drop everything and run to Krishna. And so, why do we run to Krishna when we hear his flute? so we can kiss him and get betel nut in our mouth, and then he can bend us over up on the banks of the river and give us the old heave ho. That is what it's all about, and because that's what it's all about, there is this prohibition about hearing about it. You can't hear about it. You can hear about it, but you can't hear about it. So I want to show you. Here is this. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, and that's what it is with these guys. Like, how can I insult? How can I insult somebody? Well, you're just a cowherd boy. You're not. You're not Lalita Shakti Gopi. You're not. Who's the other one? The other one. You're not Lalita Shakti Gopi. You're just a one of the cowherd boys. They're always insulting each other, just like in ISKCON. Gurus are insulting each other. Bhakti Vikash Swami doesn't like so and so Swami, and Three Fingered Jack Swami doesn't like the other Swami, and nobody likes Hridayananda Swami, and nobody likes Tamal Krishna Goswami. Nobody like Gopal Krishna Goswami. These guys, and that's the other thing. Like Prabhupada says, judge a tree by its fruit, right? Judge a tree by its fruit. So you look at the ISKCON tree and you go, what kind of crappy, rotten, maggot-infested fruit is this tree giving? Just look at the ISKCON tree and go, who would pick a fruit off of this rotten? You gotta be nuts. You gotta be nuts. Anybody who joins ISKCON and all the pedo. Well, that's what it is. That's what makes them. That's what turns them into pedophiles. First of all, women. First of all, look, man. These guys are so screwed up. These gurus are so screwed up in the head. They're so screwed up in the head. They can't have sex, right? They're not supposed to have sex. They have to deny their sexual urges of just basic human urge. They have to deny that their whole life, right? And then they're taught women are evil and the cause of all their suffering, and that they should never have anything to do with women. Meanwhile, they're trying to suppress their sexual urge for women. Now, how right there, you're screwed up. Right there, you're screwed up. Then they're taught that being an 11-year-old girl is the goal of life. So add those three things together. So I can't have sex. Women are the problem, but the goal of life is for me to become a woman and dance with Krishna on the bank. I mean, that is a recipe for psychosis. I mean, I don't know. And then you're going to put all these restrictions on them, feed them this wacky philosophy that being an 11-year-old girl is the best thing in the world to be when you die, and then stick them in a school full of boys. But you know what? You got to look at it. You got to look at it for what it is, man. And not enough people are looking at it the way it really is. And okay, so why do they teach that these 11-year-old girls are the best thing ever? And that's the goal of life, to strive to be an 11-year-old girl, so that Krishna can have an orgy with you. But don't think of it that way. Don't think of it that way. That's the wrong way to think. Thinking of it the way it is the wrong way to think. We got to come up with something to keep you from thinking that it's exactly what it is. So let's figure out a way to do that.
Thank you, Chaitanya Charanji. As always, I enjoy being here with you.
Yes, true. I enjoy it much more, and many devotees also tell me how much they relish these discussions.
Wonderful.
I thought today we would discuss the topic on which probably you have specialized more than most, or I would say any other devotee in our movement, in terms of definitely the.
All right, so let me just stop right here. I already got something to say. So first of all, you can see that the guy is going by this other name, right? He's not Shweeg right now. He's Garuda Prabhu, right? So that's the first thing. It's like he's not the professor. He's the devotee guy. And it's funny how he's the expert in Rasa Lila, right? The guy just said, you've written books about it. You've studied it more than anybody. Why? Why? Why is he studying this so much when his guru told him everything you need to know is in my books? I don't want you going out and studying other stuff about it. What is it about this Rasa Lila that's got this guy so wrapped up in it? And not only that, he's so wrapped up in it, but he doesn't want anybody else to learn about it. It's just weird. And he seems like a weird guy. And I don't mean to, like, attack his appearance or his anything, because I don't know the guy. But he just seems like a character. Like if you had to create a comedy character on a sketch about like some weird cult professor guy, this would be the guy. But so there's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on. There's his weirdness, just in his weirdness. The fact that he's hiding who he really is, and the fact that he studies this. He's the foremost expert on what we should not be studying. Let me repeat that. He's the foremost expert on what we should not be studying.
Academic domain as well as the devotional presentation. So the Rasa Lila, the Rasa Panchadhya, and the Rasa Lila in general. So I thought of discussing it in broadly 3 parts. First is that why is the Rasa Lila so important? Second is that why is there so much fear or apprehension in discussing the Rasa Lila? And then what would be the way in which we can appreciate and relish it?
Yes.
So
superb.
Now, just to start this, the imagery, iconography that we see about Krishna Lila. So there are 2-3 iconographic images which are very common. One is Krishna speaking the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. Another is Krishna stealing butter. And you could say in general Krishna's childhood pastimes, Krishna stealing butter or Krishna dancing on Kaliya. But one of the most common iconographies is that Krishna performing the Rasa Lila.
Precisely.
Yeah, and that indicates, broadly speaking, the popularity, the influence, the importance that this has, not just in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, but broadly in the broad, you could say Indian, Hindu, Vedic, whatever word we want to use, in that tradition. So Krishna has performed many pastimes. Now, at one level, we can say this is the Madhurya Ras pastime, so it's important. But can you explain how or why this pastime has become so important in the broad culture and the tradition?
Yes. Well, a very rich topic.
All right, I'm going to stop it here again, just before he gives his answer. I'm going to stop it here again before he gives his answer, because I want to comment that. So he's talking about Rasa Lila, which comes from the Bhagavat Purana, or the Srimad Bhagavatam, which the Hare Krishna founder translated as the Krishna book, and also is the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he gave instructions that we shouldn't read the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam unless we've read all 9 cantos, which is like 40 books. But then he did give a summary of the Krishna book, of the 10th canto, in what he called the Krishna book, which was the 10th canto in more of a fairy tale format. I don't know why. It resembles a fairy tales. And I don't know what the purpose of that was, and I still don't. But that's where this Rasa Lila comes from. And like the guy said, is that, you know, it's throughout Indian history, Hindu history, Vedic culture, whatever you want to call that. I still don't know what that means. And he goes on. So why is he talking to this guy about something that is so important and so Indian, such in Indian philosophy, Indian history, Indian religion, Indian language, written in Indian Sanskrit, written in all these things? There is not one Indian scholar that holds these views about the Rasa Lila that he can talk to. The only person he could find that can explain the Rasa Lila correctly is this white guy from the West. This, which, you know, it just reminds me of these pictures from the 19th century of English and European archaeologists and what do you call it? Adventurers or whatever, you know, discovering, you know, like Indiana Jones type thing, right? Like these, you know, like these German scholars and these French archaeologists and these Belgian scientists and all these going into Africa, going into Egypt, going into India, and discovering things and explaining to the world what they are. Like, what the Indians can't explain what this stuff is. They don't know. Like, there's no Indian scholar. There's not one Indian scholar. This guy couldn't find one Indian scholar at any Indian university that he could interview to explain what the Rasa Lila is in Indian terms, in Indian culture, from an Indian. No, he had to get this guy. He had to get this guy. I don't even know where this guy's from. He's probably from New York, right? He's probably from New York. He joined the Hare Krishnas when he was, I don't know, how old? 19, 20. I don't know if he's Prabhupada disciple. He's probably pretty young, because if he's a Prabhupada disciple, then he had to have joined before 1977. So, you know, how old was he in 77? If he was 20, the guy's got to be 70-some years old, right? He's got to be 75, 78. Who is he? What makes him an expert on Rasa Lila? Because he's a Hare Krishna, he's an expert on Rasa Lila, and he's going to explain out of every Indian scholar, historian, professor in India. This was the best guy you could get to explain what the Rasa Lila is. It's a cult.
The fact of the matter is that every devotee in every temple worships the Rasa Lila, either consciously or unconsciously, deliberately or not deliberately, when we gaze upon the divine figures of Radha and Krishna. The Ras Mandala, okay, the sort of iconographic imagery you were referring to in your opening statement, there are, of course, many scenes. I've counted 13 different scenes in the Rasa Panchadhyaya, the 5 chapters. Rasa Panchadhyaya means, for those who don't know, it means the 5 chapters. Pancha, 5, Adhyaya.
All right, so so let me just comment. Just comment on a couple things with this guy. The eye blinking and the closed eyes. I'm not a body language guy. I don't know anything about body language. Although I watch some of these guys and I hear what they say, but I'm not a body language guy and I can't analyze this guy's body language. But the blinking and the closed eyes when he's talking, for me, is a big red flag. Okay, and I already know he's full of crap. But if I didn't know he was full of crap, and I was just watching this, the eye blinking and the closed eyes when he's talking is just, to me, just says scammer, fraud, scammer, right off the bat. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I don't even remember what the second thing was. He was talking about everyone worships the Rasa Lila, and you can see how the Rasa Lila is really this thing that it's so important, yet you just can't talk about it. And I remember, okay, so check this out. So he's so smug, you can't even hide it. Yeah, all these guys are, man. They think, I swear, they think that because they've chanted these magic words and they supposedly follow these. I don't believe that there's anybody that's following 4 regulative principles. I just don't. I used to think that these guys were following 4 regulative principles. But when I found out that Prabhupada couldn't even follow 4 regulative principles, it made me rethink the whole thing. Because Prabhupada's faking it. I know I was faking it. There were times when I followed, but it was inadvertently. It was like I had to. I was forced to. Most of the devotees that I know were at best following 3, and I've heard so many times from so many devotees, and these are devotees that I respected, and they said, "Look, everybody knows there's 3 regulative principles, and you get to pick the 3." That was what I heard from an old time devotee, and I heard it a couple times, and I don't even know who I heard it from, but I heard that. It was pretty funny because when he said that, it was like true. It was like true because I know that these married people are having sex. I know they're having sex. I know these guys. They're doing. Every one of them is doing something. Every one of them's doing something. Most of it is sex. I'd say the most of them are having sex. They're not following the no sex thing. The second one is intoxication. And then the third one would be gambling, buying a lottery ticket. I know a lot of devotees would go buy lottery tickets and stuff. And every devotee's got the same attitude. It's just a lottery ticket. It's just a cigarette. It's my wife. I'm having sex. It's just I'm having sex with my wife, or it's my girlfriend. It's just this. Like even me, I was like, well, I'm just smoking pot every now and then. Every devotee was the same thing. It's just a cigarette. It's just a beer. There were so many devotees that would go out and go out for drinks, go out to drink beer, but they would go far away because they don't want anybody to know. they would be at the temple, and then they'd be like, hey, let's go out to the beach. Let's go to Venice Beach. Okay, we'll go out to Venice Beach. Let's go out to Venice Beach. They weren't going out to Venice Beach to chant or anything. They were going to go sit in the parking lot and drink some beer and maybe smoke a joint out at the beach in a parking lot where no one could see them. Santa Monica Pier or Venice Beach or Santa Monica Pier or Malibu Park, or let's go to, they would go far from the temple, as far as they could get, because they didn't want to. I did that my first trip to India. I was with devotees, and I was expected to be like not do anything, because these were devotees that I did drugs with. I was like, I'd smoke pot with them, I'd do some other stuff, and but we went to India, and they were like, oh, we're not doing anything when we go to India, and I was like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? And so then I'm there, and I find out that one of the guys bought a bunch of hash, and he's got hash in his room, and he's smoking hash in his room. And I'm like, well, if he's smoking hash in his room, well, I can go smoke. I want to smoke hash. Once I heard that, I was like, I want to go smoke some hash, but I didn't want to smoke it there, because see, everybody knew he was smoking hash in his room. Like, he was trying to keep it a secret, but everybody knew. Like, I knew. The word got out. Like, Beer Lakshman smoking hash in his room, because the guy who sold it told somebody, and it's a very small little village. So, you do something, you make an offense, or you do something, it's just like everybody knows. If you tell the wrong person, or the wrong person sees you, boom, it's like. So I was like, I want to smoke some hash. So I went to the guy's room, and I was like, hey, I heard you got some hash. And he's like, yeah, I got some hash. And so I was like, well, let's go smoke. And he goes, he had some pot, and he had some hash, and he goes, okay, yeah, well, let's smoke. And I was like, I don't want to do it here, because I don't want anybody to know I'm doing it. I don't want anybody to know I'm doing it, because then it's like, because it's a cult. So it's like, and then it's like, and then you have to kind of like, regain the trust or whatever. So anyway, I was like, I'm not going to do it here. Someone's going to see. Someone's going to know. Someone's going to smell. So we took a taxi. We went all the way to Mathura, and then we got on a boat. We went across the river to like this area, and then we went for a walk, and we walked like, and we got lost. We walked off into like some farmland, and bong lassi. I tried bong lassi, but it didn't. I didn't really feel it. Probably because I was smoking hash. But I would like to try really strong bong lassi. I would love to go where they make a really strong one. But in Vrindavan, they don't really make bong lassi. They can make it, like, if you know somebody, but it's like there's other places in India where they sell it, like bong lassi, and you can go you drink it. But in Vrindavan, it's not. You can find it if you know somebody, but it's not advertised. So I didn't get. But you could buy the bong. The bong you can buy, and you eat it. You can just buy that like buying a cigarette, and that shit is nasty. And it comes like it looks like a little ball of like green silly putty, and it's like God, it's like dough, it's like bread dough, and it's like green, and it's nasty. It tastes horrible, and it's like a little ball, like if you were making cookies and you had like a little ball of dough to make a cookie. And my friend gave me this thing and he's like, just put it in the back of your throat, put it in the back of your tongue, like as far back as you can, and just swallow it. And so I did. I tried. I stuck it, and it wouldn't go down. And now it's like stuck on the back of my tongue, and and I can't get it down, and it tastes like, and I'm like, "Ugh," I'm starting to like throw up because it just tastes so bad. It tastes bad. Plus, it's stuck on the back of my tongue, and it's causing my gag reflex, and it was a hard. But then I got some water and I drank that shit down, and I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it. I probably needed to eat 2 of them or 3 of them, but yeah. So so we got on a boat and we went across to the farmland, and we walked and we got lost, and I actually did that twice on 2 different trips, and just walked way out into nowhere and smoked hash, thinking that no one could see me and no one knew, but I'm sure people were watching and people knew. It's like that's just the way it is there. But so anyway, there's like I know that these guys are not following all the regular principles. And I heard that so many times that I honestly believe that there's 3 regular principles. You get to pick which 3. Rarely do Hare Krishnas eat meat. There was a crazy woman at the LA temple who ate meat, and everybody knew she ate meat. And it was like, and she would come and she'd have the flower that she'd see the deities, and she'd, touch Prabhupada's feet, and she would do all the Hare Krishna stuff. She had the beads, neck beads, she had Tulsi beads, she had japa beads. She was always chanting japa, but she was a little weird in the head. Like I think she had like mental, mental issues. She needed mental help, and but I saw her in the store buying meat, and I was like, I saw her putting big things like hamburger and steaks or whatever in her shopping basket, and I just kind of was like, oh. And people had told me, they go, yeah, she eats meat. She's a little weird. She eats meat, and that's rare. But they're having sex, they're getting intoxicated, and they're gambling. I mean, my one friend that I hung out with, he was always buying lottery tickets, buying the scratcher tickets, buying the lottery tickets. He was like addicted to those things, and and then a lot of these guys that I knew had girlfriends, and they're living with non Hare Krishna girls, and these guys are chanting and following, and you'd think they were shaved up, and they're like, and well, that was like me. I was like that because I had girlfriends that were not Hare Krishnas, and I was shaved up and the whole thing, and that I pulled that off, but I wasn't following all 4 regular principles. I was following 3. I was following 2. I was having sex with my wife. I was having sex, and I was getting intoxicated. And but I was doing everything else. So what difference does it make? Because everybody else is doing that. Everybody else is doing that. So it's all a bunch of baloney. So this guy, I know he's doing something. They all are. And the other one, the other tell is all of these gurus that have fallen down. And like that's the worst. It's like they were doing so much stuff they had to just bounce out. They couldn't even face, like me, right? I could smoke a joint, or I could smoke a joint. I didn't feel guilty about it. I went to the temple. I did my thing. Mangal Artik. I could chant 16 rounds a day. Go to the evening program. I go to Venice Beach, Sankirtan. I would do the subtitling of the videos. I wouldn't smoke while I was in the temple or at working, but at home. I smoke at home. But I was doing everything else. That doesn't stop anybody from doing anything. So when I realized that, I'm thinking I'm the only one. But no, everybody's doing that. Everybody's doing what I was doing. Everybody was like, maybe even in the ashram, there are guys that were in the ashram that are doing that are snorting crystal meth and shooting up and doing all kinds of stuff in the brahmachari ashram, in the blue building where the married people, where the couples live, in the ashram where the gurus live. They're doing stuff in there, snorting coke, doing meth, taking ecstasy. This one guy that I was working with, he wasn't really a Hare Krishna. I mean, he was a Hare Krishna just because he was like living there, and he was going to the, like, I think he was just living there, like. But he was going to all the programs. He was supposedly chanting, but he was working with me at the video at the ITV. And one day we were talking, and he's like, I'm more like a Buddhist. He was telling me, I'm more like a Buddhist. This Krishna thing is below Buddhism. He's like, Krishna is down here, and Buddha's up here. And for me, I was like, what's this guy doing here? I was like, what's this guy doing here? But yeah, so he's like, yeah, I'm more of a Buddhist than but Krishna is like, it's cool, and the chanting's cool, and the Krishna's cool. But I think he was just using it like to live there, and he had this like little job. He was making like $5 an hour. I was making $5 an hour, 5 hours a day or whatever. Right? We're making $25 a day, whatever, working doing video. And so he's like, so he tells me one day, yeah, the other night, man, I did some LSD in my room, and I like freaked out, and I was like walking around, and I was like, you're doing LSD or ecstasy in your room in the blue building right here? He's like, yeah, I did some ecstasy. I had a bad trip, and oh man, I was like, I thought they were coming. I thought I was a duck, and he was just like, so and then I just realized, that everybody's doing something, man. Everybody's doing something, and that's why it's Emperor's New Clothes. It's all Emperor's New Clothes. It's none of it is real. None of it is the real deal. So I'm gonna do one more little thing about the Rasa Lila, and then I'm gonna call it a day here. This guy is another preacher, and I just want to.
Question from Shweta Shetty Mataji. It is said that when advanced devotees, when sannyasis hear the Rasa Lila pastimes, they see it transcendentally, and so they don't get contaminated, but they become purified and eventually liberated. But what happens when we neophyte devotees hear or read about the Rasa Lila pastimes and with mundane intentions, like as in movies, then do we become purified or not? Answer: the effect is something which will vary depending on the individual level of advancement and the individual level of appreciation of Krishna's pastimes with the devotees. So at one level we could say that from one perspective we could say that any contact with Krishna is purifying. So even Krishna's Rasa Lila pastimes are also purifying. And yes, that is true. At the same time, the nature of our conditioning is such that the conditioning can use anything for its own purposes. Just like, for example,
Okay, so basically, basically what he's saying is he doesn't know. He didn't know what to do. Prabhupada is saying that we gotta strive for this Gopi Bhava. This Rasa Lila is the highest. It's Lord Chaitanya's movement. This Rasa Lila and the mood of the gopis, all of this stuff with the gopis and the mood of the gopis. But got to be careful because you might misunderstand it, and if you misunderstand it, then that's a big mistake, and it can just ruin your spiritual life. So 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 what is it? Do we need to is it the goal of life to understand this Rasa Lila, or should we avoid it because it could ruin our spiritual life? It's well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you my point of view. It's all a bunch of bull. Okay, it's a sex orgy that was written thousands of years ago, 1,000 years ago, written in code for each other, for other priests or whatever, people of the cult, that they could read and they could enjoy, and maybe they could pleasure themselves to these stories of Krishna and these gopis and these 11-year-old girls, and I don't know what the point of it is, but it has no spiritual. Reading the story about Krishna and these gopis is not going to give you any understanding of anything. Nothing. It's not going to open your mind up. Information's not going to come just shoot right into your brain. It doesn't teach you anything. There's no moral to the story. It's actually a very immoral story where one guy can just go and play his flute and have all the little girls in the village come and just drop what they're doing and go and have sex with him. It's a very immoral story. And Krishna is a very immoral character where he does a lot of immoral things. But they want you to think that somehow the bad things that he does are good. And if you can understand them that they're good, that then they're no longer bad. And then somehow that makes you good. And then you can advance and become an even better person. And you can teach other people to be good by reading these stories and spreading this pornography about a 16-year-old boy going and having sex with 11-year-old girls on the banks of the river, because that's really what it's all about. There is no other explanation. There is no other explanation. Otherwise, why don't they want you to understand it? Why don't they want you to learn it? Why don't they want to teach it to you? Why do they simultaneously want you to learn it and not learn it? How come the one guy can learn it and write books about it, but no one else can do it? What is it about this that's so secretive but yet so liberating? And I'll tell you, it's just wacky cult stuff. It's the story of a guy that goes out on the thing and with a bunch of little girls and he has sex with them. Bottom line, that's it. There's no moral. There's no explanation. There's no any of that. It's just, that's what it is. That is what it is. So I'm going to end it right there. I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to call it a day. Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. Stay away from this dangerous cult. It'll contaminate your mind. It'll get you to think all kinds of crazy stuff. And believing one little crazy thing will lead you to believing two little crazy things. And pretty soon you're believing in all kinds of crazy stuff. And you just got to, you got to just nip it in the bud. So, hey, everybody, I want to thank you all for joining in and watching. If you're watching live, thanks for watching live. If you're watching on a replay, I hope you're learning stuff from all this. And don't get stuck don't get fooled by this stuff. Don't get fooled by these phony experts that are just Hare Krishna people in disguise. Don't get fooled by these YouTube preachers that are just Hare Krishnas in disguise. They got nothing to teach you, nothing that you can't learn somewhere else. So just beware of them all. And thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Spread the word. I want to spread the word so many people can see these videos as possible, learn about the dangers of this dangerous cult. And everybody have a great day, a great night, a great morning, great evening, and have some great luck and stay out of a cult. Thanks, everybody.